Hello everyone, this is the great Lord and Master, Osiron, the Eternal, for another video of the tree and jewel, and it's actually a more perfect example of the universal tree of divine perfection. If you recall from the video that I made about this, I said that this is the most perfect structure there is regarding the single-digit code, and you probably wouldn't ever get a structure that's more perfect. Well, I found one, and it is this structure here in the middle. But before I get to the details of this, let me just kind of go over what's here. Over here we have the true tree of life in its inverted position, the root. And then we have the jewel of creation, and these are fused together, and this is what the Kabbalistic tree of life really is. And I have it drawn differently this time, though. These are the 22 pathways here, and I have this section in the middle shown as like a half circle, like two little half circles. And the reason I did that is because there's actually two lines there. In the video I made explaining this, I misspoke in the video, and it was a pretty key misspeak. I said 21 a couple times when referring to the pathways on this, but in the same description I went back to 22. But the reason why that's so important is because if you looked at it and actually counted the lines, it would only look like 21 lines. But the key distinction is this line here actually gets used twice when it's when the construct is built from 0 to 1, and then again when it goes through its oscillations, that line gets used twice, and that's why there's 22 lines. But if you counted it the way it was drawn before, it would only show 21 lines, but there's really 22. So this is what this is, and this here, of course, is the universal tree of divine perfection, which is still divinely perfect in every way. But the difference between this and this is this structure is more congruent with what is actually going on with the true tree of life and the jewel. Because we know the true tree of life and the jewel works from both ways. It works towards the middle here, and this end starts here and works towards the middle. Whereas the universal tree of divine perfection is a one-directional thing in its main construct. It goes from 1, 0 here, and then goes up to 18, and it's going in one flow. Whereas this goes in two directions. I'll explain this more in a minute, but I just want to kind of clean up a little bit before I do that. And the whole reason for this video, the main reason for this video, is I wanted to show something that I discovered about the true tree and the jewel after I made the last video. And this is pretty powerful, and this is actually this is common knowledge from people who are like into math, school math. And what that is 22 divided by 7 equals 3.14, and that is an approximation of pi. So when you divide 22 by 7, you get 3.14, and that is an approximation of pi. It really ends there, though, because pi, as we all know, is a rational number, and it supposedly is infinite. But this loses its contact with pi here, because the next number in pi would be 1, and when you divide 22 by 7, it goes 3.142, so it loses its congruency basically here with what I have, but it's an approximation of pi when you divide 22 by 7. And we see that on the middle pillar. When you add the true tree of life, these four here, 0 through 9, that gives you the 22. And then on the jewel, you're left with, if you can do it both ways. You can add the 9, 6, and 1 for a 16, which reduces to 7, or you can just go 6 and 1, gives you a 7 for the jewel. And we're seeing some important stuff with this, with the number 7 on the middle pillar and the jewel of creation, and the idea that the material matrix is light. Lucifer is the light. That's why I have it up here. Lucifer is the light, and the material matrix is actually Lucifer. And that's what we're seeing here. And there's a lot going on with that. I'll get back to this a little bit later and explain more on that. I just want to show, and this little structure here is sort of like, all this structure was meant to do in the beginning was show that the this construct here, if you overlay it going the other way, because as I said, this is one directional here, and if you were to overlay it the other way, doing the same exact thing as this but coming down, everything cancels to 9. And this little structure was supposed to kind of show that. And there's two ways you could have done it. If you did it exactly reversed and not count the pillars, because you know these trees, or the tree of life has, the pillars are polarized. You got feminine and masculine. Well, if you discounted that with this and just overlaid it exactly, meaning you would do the opposite and it would come down the exact reverse. It would come down the exact reverse and it would all cancel to 9. If you maintain the integrity of the pillars, like if you were to say this is feminine no matter what and this is masculine no matter what, then it would separate to 8 and 1 on those two pillars like that. And this construct was only supposed to show that. And then I realized if you start in the middle here, this is like a neat little way that shows 12, like the relationship of 12 and even 8. Okay, if you start in the middle here as the point of 0, and you come out and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, back in the middle, 7, 8, 9, then 10, 11, and then 12 lands right back in the middle, and it forms a figure 8 pattern that encapsulates the number 12. And the beauty of the structure is it's actually infinite in a way too, because you stack this up on top of each other, because the bottom is a 9 and the top is a 3, and then when you plug them into each other, the 9 plus 3 would become 12 again, and which reduces to a 3. So this could stack on top of itself, and it does a lot of other interesting things too. The masculine numbers on either construct reveal a 12 too. So when you add 6, like in this upper world here, I'll actually start with the lower worlds because there's a point I want to make. So in the lower world, the numbers that take the masculine role are the 8 and the 10 as a masculine and the 12 as a masculine. When you add those up, you have 8 and then 9, then 3 for 12, so 8, 9, then 10, 11, 12, and that gives you a 12 or 3 reduced for this world down here. And the other triangle that is the female triangle reduces to 9. So you got 7, 8, 9, and 18, 9, and that reduces to a 9. Up here, the masculine numbers are on the feminine triangle, and those numbers add to 12 again. You got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which reduces to 3. And that is on the feminine triangle, but the masculine numbers are in that position. And then the female numbers are on the masculine, what would be the masculine shaped triangle, and that reduces to 9. You got 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we're seeing a lot of interesting things in this construct in relation to 12 and even 8, and you could say because it forms in a figure 8 loop. It goes around and right back into the middle, and it's congruent. Everything's like that. And this is, there's a lot going on with this, and it's pretty neat. But it was in pondering this structure here, trying to make this fit into infinity, that I actually discovered this structure. Because because there's one point I really have to make, is that all these ideas don't just pop in my head complete. You know what I mean? These ideas don't just show up complete. I have to work at this to get this to work out. I was actually staring at this, and this over here for like 4 days before I figured out this structure, and I figured out this structure on the full moon the other day, 5/29, and that was like 4 days after I started working on this. I was just staring at this, trying to make a video that was going to be worthwhile, because I didn't have anything except the fact that this turns into pi, and this, when you overlay it reverse, cancel itself out. That's not really anything, that's not really a great stellar video. But then this popped in, then this came to me and I started working it and I realized how this isn't actually divinely perfect structure, and this is a perfect time to get into that, what this structure actually is. Okay, now I said that this structure is more congruent with what's going on with the true tree and jewel, and it is because it shows two-way motion. But there's one thing I want to point out. See, the mistake I made with this versus this, because this is divinely perfect. I'm not taking away from this at all. This is divinely perfect, and this turns into the infinite web of fractality that I made a video about. But what this does, I have a video on the Kabbalistic kill stroke. It shows how the true tree and the jewel transform to form this structure here, 3 interconnected rings. Okay. And these black lines show the demarc point of that. You have the hexagonal shape here, you have the hexagonal shape up here, and then in the middle, these two worlds in the middle are incomplete, untransformed worlds. But when you transform them, it turns into this. And when it transforms into this, there is no spheres in the middle of these. See, I just added those spheres in the middle because I just felt like it would be cool to do that, and it fits in with the flower of life pattern if you do that. But when the tree and jewel transform into this, there are no spheres in the middle of any of these. I just added those, and it just turns out it produces something that's amazing. But as far as the tree and jewel are concerned, there is no spheres here. So now what you do is, and the beauty of this structure is, it acknowledges 0 in the construction of it, but then when the construct is finished, 0 disappears, okay? So what you do, and this could probably actually start from the bottom to the top, but in this case I started from the top down, but it really doesn't matter, as you'll see in a minute. Okay, what you do is you acknowledge 0, okay? You acknowledge 0 here, and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you go back up. You go 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and that 0 gets filled in by the 18, which reduces to 9. Okay, so now the 0 disappears with the only number that has the right to take the place of 0, which is 9, and it forms a closed, completed construct. But the beauty of this is, this shows two-way action, and it's completely mirrored on its reverse construct. It's the same thing. It's basically the same thing both ways, because what happens is on this side you see the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8. Well, when you reduce this, 10 becomes 1, 11 becomes 2. You got the 13 and 14, which reduce to 4 and 5. And then you have the 16 and 17, which reduce to 7 and 8. So this 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8 is the same here. 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8 on this side. And then the 3s and the 6s counterbalance themselves in the 3, 6 spheres. You got 3 here, and then the 15 becomes 6. And you got the 6 here, and the 12 becomes 3, which is amazing. Now, one other point that's pretty amazing with this too is, and you're going to see that like these two spheres here, when they join together, become 3. These two spheres, when they join, become 9, and these two, when joined, become 6. And you see, of course, 3, 9, 6. Well, the beauty of this is, now we have to start getting away from the idea of pillars, because the pillars are fine for the tree of life constructs, because they're fine for that. But now we're getting into spirals here. So on the bottom, I have a habit of writing what the totals reduce to when you add the numbers up. And I did that again here, but I kept it simple here for a lot of reasons. And I only used the reduced forms, except for the 6336, because again, in the middle here, these middle spheres, when you add them up in the unreduced form, it becomes 63. And then when you add them up in the reduced form, it becomes 36. And we see that same thing here on the universal tree of divine perfection. But the same thing happens on, I could call this the chains of Olympus, just to give it a name for now. You're seeing the same thing. When you add it up and it's non-reduced, you get 63. When you add it up and it's reduced, you get 36 in the middle here. Now, The other pillars, if you want to call them pillars, when you add them in the reduced form, obviously it's 396, and that becomes 18. Same thing here, 396, which becomes 18. But we have to kind of get away from the notion of pillars on this, because this isn't a pillar form, it's spirals now. So, but it's the same thing either way when you use reduced numbers. So now we got 3 spirals to 9, then spirals to 6, and then it goes to 3 spirals to 9 and spirals to 6. So the 18 is the same no matter how you do it. That's why I kept only the reduced forms here. But now the beauty of that is, you got to 36 in the middle. When you add 18 and 18, that gives you 36. And 36 plus 36 is 72. So this construct is showing in its reduced forms 72, and we know how powerful that number is already. I have videos on that. So we're seeing the 72 here. Now, a few other interesting points of this. Both of these constructs, the chains of Olympus and the universal tree of divine perfection, when you add all the numbers up in their unreduced forms, the grand total of it becomes 171. This does the same exact thing. And that 171 is a pretty interesting number because, number one, it's all feminine. All the numbers are feminine. Okay? But it's 3 numbers. And if you were to add that 1 to this 7, it becomes 81. Or if you were to reverse it, add this 1 to this 7, it becomes 18. And we know from the true tree and jewel is comprised of 18 spheres, and when you add up the total numbers for them both, it becomes 81. So we have the 18-81 relationship with the true tree and jewel, and we kind of see that here with the grand total number of 171. And now, if you were to use this as pillars, and you would add up the unreduced totals, I got that written here, what they are. If you were to use the unreduced numbers, this, if you using the pillars, this would be 45, and this would be 63. And when you add 45 and 63, that gives you 108. If you were to do it in spiral form, just using the outer ones, not the middle, you got 3, then 9, then 15 becomes 27. And this side, you have these two, and these two, which form 81 for their total. A lot of interesting things going on with that numbers to do that, but for the sake of this video and to keep it simple, and I just used the reduced forms because it doesn't matter how you do it. You can use pillars and get 18, or you can spiral through and get 18. It doesn't matter. And of course, you notice the 396. Now, there's also one other very interesting point to this. Right, when you come down, okay, you come down the top and you got 1 is feminine, 2 is masculine, 4 is masculine, 5 is feminine, 7 is feminine, and 8 is masculine, okay? It's the exact reverse on the other side when you go back up. Okay, we have the 1 and the 0 here taking the masculine role, because 10 follows the chain of numbers and it takes the masculine spot because it's even. So it's taking the masculine role, and when you reduce that, it becomes a 1. And now we have the 11, which reduces to a 2, but it's using 2 feminine numbers and taking the feminine role. The 12 here is in its masculine presentation because it's an even number, but when you reduce it, it's a 3, and it counterbalances to 6. Same thing with the 13. It's comprised of 2 feminine numbers, and it's taking the feminine spot, but it reduces to a 4, which is masculine. And over here, we have the 14, which takes the masculine position, which reduces to the feminine 5. And over here we have the 16, which is in the middle here we have the 15, which shows up as 2 feminine numbers, but reduces to a 6. And then we have the 3, 6 counterbalance here. The 7 is, the 16 here is taking the masculine spot, which reduces to 7. And the 17 takes the feminine spot, which reduces to the masculine 8. And then the 18, same thing. It cancels out like that. So it's completely reversed on the opposite side. And the important thing is the two-way stream. This is going backwards and forward, just like the true tree and the jewel are. Now, one other interesting point to go along with this is, oh man, I just lost my train. Okay, yeah. When you go through the process that joins the true tree and jewel to form this structure, this middle moves and it seals itself. Well, these two when it does that, these two spheres here that share two numbers, that's actually congruent with what goes on with the fusion of the tree and jewel, because the two spheres that merge together are the ones that have two numbers in them, the 6-3 and the 3-6 up here. There's two numbers in that to do that, and those are the spheres that do merge and join. So this is actually 100% congruent in that phase too. There's a lot of other things. You got 9. Every row here reduces to 9. You know, you got 1 and 17 become 9, 2 and 16 become 9, 3 and 6 become 9, 14. All these, every row becomes 9, and then the double rows here, you got 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the middle is 4 to give you a 64 or a 10. There's a lot of interesting things going on with this. Now, one other point I want to show real quick, because this was supposed to be kind of about the number 7, because as we see them in the middle pillar, the jewel of creation becomes 7. There's a lot of interesting aspects with 7. A lot of people use 7, and 7 is a powerful number, as we see on the Osiron tarot spiral. There's millions of examples where the number 7 shows up. But so up here what I did, I took the numbers 1 through 7, and then doing the same thing I do with 0 through 9 or even 1 through 8, I pushed it back into itself going reversed. So you got 1 through 7 going this way, and then you got 1 through 7 reversing going the other way. And what that does is now when you add up all the numbers that are left, every row becomes 8. Okay, so now we're getting the 8 to come from this two-way stream of the 7s. And now, 7 times 8 equals 56. Well, if you recall from the pillars of Yakin on either tree, when you multiply them, it becomes 56, which shows the heart of the tree and jewel. So you have the heart of the true tree is a 5, and the heart of the jewel is a 6. So 7 times 8 is 56, and we're seeing that as interesting. Another interesting aspect, though, to go with that, is that they say when, there's like, passage in the Bible or some shit like that, where they say that when man incarnated into this world, they split to form man and woman. Well, we're seeing that with the numbers here, because when you push 1 through 7 back into itself, the numbers stay separated by polarity. So you got the 1 and the 7 are feminine, 2 and 6 is masculine, and on it goes. They stay separated. So it's kind of what's going on with this. All the numbers are polarized separately, with 4 and 4 being in the middle. So it's showing a separation of the sexes and the separation of polarity in this number scheme when you do it this way. So that's just a little thing. That was just sort of something I was going to add before I figured this out. But really, the chains of Olympus here is really the star of the show as far as this video is concerned. It was going to be this, how this, 22 divided by 7 becomes pi, but this shows a lot in the tree of life and the jewel structures now. We're really seeing a lot going on with this that validates this as being, see, my argument is, Kabbalism is just going away now, because it's more than obvious that the Kabbalistic demonstration is complete bullshit and charlatanism, as is everything that comes from the architects of Abrahamism. But that's so lowball now, because we're getting into a lot more of what's going on with the code of numbers that's produced and the geometry that's produced. It's just washing away the Kabbalistic trash. It's almost beneath me now to even mention it, because it's just so asinine. If people want to believe in Kabbalism, fine, believe in Kabbalism. There's people who still believe in the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. So that's basically what the level of Kabbalism has been reduced to now. It's just a child's fantasy. Because now we're seeing a lot here. When you add this up, as I've said a million times, you get 22. But when you multiply it, it becomes 360. And up here, the same thing. So now, not only are you getting the circle, the dimensions of the circle with 360 here, but now we're also getting pi. I missed something really important. So we have all these constructs. We have 2 new constructs. We have a funny little construct that shows the nature of 12. And then we have, of course, the chains of Olympus, which is absolutely... The chains of Olympus here is equally divine as the universal tree of divine perfection, but in context to the true tree of life and jewel, it's actually more perfect than that, because it shows the two-way streaming action. This is two-way streaming action here. This is, and then as I've said before, all of my videos this year have shown the nature of duality in this nature of two that we live in. Because there really is no one, there's only 0 and 2. So the idea of oneness is actually just a diluted fantasy of returning to the 0 state is basically what one is. One is what we consider 0. So that is all. Thank you and namaste.